The intelligence report on Admiral Chen's desk was the kind that ends careers or starts wars. A satellite image showed the Iranian cargo vessel Shahid cutting through the Omani Gulf, her hull riding low from the weight of her cargo. Officially, she carried drilling equipment destined for Bandar Abbas. Unofficially, she carried enough uranium centrifuges to accelerate Iran's nuclear program by 5 years. In 6 hours, she would cross into Iranian territorial waters and become untouchable. An airstrike was impossible without triggering a regional war. That left one option: 10 men in black wetsuits dropping off a submarine into black water 200 kilometers from the Iranian coast, with orders that did not officially exist. Lieutenant Commander Walsh checked his dive computer before dropping beneath the surface. 4 hours to complete the mission. Then the submarine leaves, with or without them. No exceptions, no rescue. Just 10 men, 1 ship, and darkness. Swimming through open ocean at night is nothing like the movies. There is no visibility beyond your hand, no sense of direction except the compass on your wrist, and the cold works into your muscles, regardless of how good your wetsuit is. Walsh led his 9 men in tight formation, each following the blue chemical light on the fins of the man ahead. They covered 2 kilometers to the Shahid in 22 minutes, surfacing silently in the shadow of her hull. The ship loomed above them like a steel cliff, her lights reflecting orange on black water. Park went first, the magnetic hook clanking softly against the hull before holding firm. One by one, they climbed, hand over hand. On deck, Reeves and Murphy broke toward the crane housing, taking sniper positions. The rest gathered behind a cargo container, while Park scouted ahead. 2 guards on the stern, 1 by the main hatch, 1 near the bridge ladder. Walsh heard Park in his earpiece. 4 visible. Moving on, your call. The first 2 guards went down without a sound. Walsh and Park working in the practiced silence of men who had done this in too many countries to need words. The 3rd guard heard something and turned halfway before Torres reached him. 4 seconds. Walsh was moving toward the hatch when Cole pointed at the security camera above the door, its red light blinking steadily. Someone inside was watching. Cole pulled his tablet and began the wireless intrusion, but the system was sophisticated, and he held up 3 fingers. They did not have 3 minutes. The 4th guard came around the corner and saw Santos standing in the open. For 1 long second, both men stared at each other. Santos was faster. The suppressed burst sounded like knocking on a hollow door, but the radio on the guard's belt crackled immediately, a voice demanding a status check in Farsi. Kim listened 2 seconds, then looked at Walsh. They know something is wrong. 90 seconds before they send someone. The interior of the Shahid was a maze of narrow corridors that turned every corner into a kill box. Walsh had studied the ship's schematics for 16 hours, but schematics do not show the smell of engine oil or the way sound bounces off metal walls. The Quds Force had drilled for exactly this. They did not panic. Instead, they established overlapping positions at each junction, creating fields of fire that forced the SEALs to fight for every meter. Santos set up at the first intersection, burning through ammunition to keep heads down while the team pushed toward the cargo hold. Webb moved too fast around a corner and nearly took AK fire through his chest, the rounds sparking off the wall centimeters from his face. He pressed flat and looked at Jackson with eyes that were too wide. Jackson grabbed his shoulder. "Get your breathing under control and stay behind me." Torres reached the cargo hold hatch and began working the locks while the team held position around him. The cargo hold ran the full width of the ship and 2 decks deep, filled with crated equipment smelling of machine oil and fresh metal. Cole cut the seal on the nearest container while Walsh covered the hatch. The centrifuges were exactly where intelligence said, nested in foam-lined crates with Russian technical markings over the original labels. Cole photographed everything methodically. It was Kim who found the man hiding behind the 3rd row of containers, crouched, with eyes closed like a child believing that if he could not see the danger, it could not see him. He was in his 60s, with the hands of someone who had spent a life around machinery. His name is Volkov, Russian contractor. He installed the centrifuge systems and missed his flight home. Walsh looked at the old man. "Can he walk?" Kim nodded. "Then he comes with us." Torres placed C4 against the centrifuge housings. 20-minute timer. The clock was now a physical thing in the room with all of them. Colonel Karimi had spent 11 years in the Quds Force, learning how Americans think in a crisis. He knew they always believed they could fight their way out. He did not storm the cargo hold. Instead, he sealed every exit with 4-man teams carrying PKM machine guns, then picked up the ship's intercom. "Lieutenant Commander Walsh, we know your name. We know your submarine waits 5 kilometers northeast. Every exit from this hold is covered by weapons that will cut your team apart before you cover 10 meters. Lower your weapons and come out with hands visible." Walsh listened without expression. Then he looked at his team. 9 faces in the dim hold, sweat-streaked and steady. Santos had appeared from the corridor with a bloody gash on his forearm and a nearly empty magazine. Kim was speaking quietly to Volkov. Torres looked at his watch and held up 10 fingers. 10 minutes on the C4 timer. Walsh said nothing. His team already knew what came next. Volkov touched Kim's arm and spoke rapidly in Russian, pointing toward the back wall of the hold. He says there is a maintenance tunnel behind the secondary ballast panel. It runs to the engine room, and from there, an emergency hatch opens below the waterline. Volkov pulled a folded diagram from his jacket, drawn from memory. Walsh studied it 10 seconds. The tunnel appeared on the original schematics, but he had dismissed it as too narrow. Looking at it now, with no other options, he understood that narrow and possible was the only standard that mattered. "Torres, Santos, hold this corridor 2 minutes, then follow." He keyed his radio. "Reeves, Murphy, eyes on the exterior deck? 6 men on the port rail, 3 near the stern," came the reply. "When we hit the water, kill every light source on that deck. Anything that helps them see us dies." "Understood." Walsh turned to Volkov and nodded once. The old man straightened his jacket and nodded back with a quiet dignity. The maintenance tunnel was 60 centimeters across and 30 meters long, filled with heat from the engine room and the vibration of the drive shaft beneath them. They moved single file with weapons forward, Volkov in the middle with Kim guiding him by the shoulder. Park led by touch and night vision. 8 meters from the engine room hatch, Park stopped and raised a fist. Through the hatch, they could hear 2 men on the other side. Karimi had reached the same conclusion from the same schematics. Walsh pulled a flashbang, looked at Park, and counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. The hatch blew open, and the grenade went through, and the engine room became a wall of sound and light. They were through before the echo died, Park taking the man on the left, and Walsh the man on the right. The engine room was deafeningly loud, the twin diesels filling the space with heat and noise. Torres reached the emergency flooding hatch. Black water showed through the seal. They dropped into the water, one after another, Volkov going between Kim and Webb as they fell into the cold, black ocean. Walsh counted them out and was pulling through the hatch when Santos said Park's name in a tone that stopped everything. Park was against the wall, with both hands pressed against his left side, and the dark spreading between his fingers was not engine oil. He had been hit in the tunnel and said nothing. Walsh grabbed him. "Why did you not say something?" Park looked almost apologetic. "Did not want to slow us down." They got him into the water, and then they were all swimming hard away from the hull. Above them, Reeves and Murphy worked through every light source, each shot sending another spotlight dark. Walsh counted heads. 8, 9. He looked back and saw Webb with one arm around Volkov, pointing back toward the ship. Walsh turned and saw nothing but hull. Then the C4 detonated, and the Shaheed opened from inside like a flower made of fire, and there was nothing left. The medical bay of the USS Georgia was small, and everything bolted down. Jackson had been working 40 minutes by the time Walsh came through the hatch, and the look on his face answered the question before Walsh could ask. Park was stable, but would need surgery the moment they reached Bahrain. Murphy had a round through the upper arm. Everyone else was whole. Walsh sat in the corridor and looked at his hands. Volkov was 2 compartments forward, wrapped in a thermal blanket, and he would spend the coming months talking to CIA debriefers somewhere in Virginia. The centrifuges were on the bottom of the Omani Gulf. Iran would issue a statement about a maritime accident. The United States would express condolences. None of Walsh's men would receive recognition. Park would recover, and the scar on his side would be the only record that any of this happened. Walsh thought about that with the submarine running silent. Some victories exist only in the dark, spoken of to no one.